Hi everyone, this is StichRulez, and I want to talk about today's card called Infinite Impermanence in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links for Speed Duel format. It's a trap card that got released from the Selection Box Mini Volume 7, and the effect goes as target one face-up monster you controls negate its effects until the end of this turn. Then, if this card was set before activation and is on the field at resolution, for the rest of this turn, all other spell and trap cards effects in this column are negated. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. So this is obviously a very powerful card. This is widely used in the OTCG formats as well in Speed Duel on those formats. So you have to think that most people who are utilizing this type of card in those decks in a powerful form in powerful formats like that, it's going to probably translate pretty well into Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, and it has. Many of the top decks that have been competing in the tournaments, as of myself, have found very good success so far. I recently just got this card from the Selection Box Mini Volume 7, and it's very powerful. The fact that you can use it on your opponent's turn and during your turn is going to be very important, because there's a lot of times where you may not, for example, if you draw into effect failure, you can't use effect failure on your turn, but if you drew into infinite impermanence, you can use that during your turn, because you're more than likely not going to control any cards in the draw phase unless your opponent gives you a monster or some sort of card or a token. So this card is going to be it's going to be live most of the time, as opposed to if you compare it to effect failure, you're not going to be able to use that during your turn. So this actually comes up a lot, because your draw card, when you're going into your draw phase, you want to make sure you have a card that can be used, because the meta is so quick, strong, and very, very powerful in many different ways. So every card counts. And if you have 3 infinite impermanences, you're going to be able to use those cards during your turn, and as well, of course, during your opponent's turn. So the fact that you can draw into it and still use it during your turn, if your opponent sets up a powerful board, it really almost power creeps effect failure. Now, effect failure is very strong still, and I think that effect failure will be used in many cases. But if you're comparing it to infinite impermanence is pretty much a more powerful effect failure in many cases. So you're going to have more effectiveness in a situation like that. Now, you can use infinite impermanence and effect failure, so you get the best of both worlds. Because again, effect failure, despite not being as versatile as infinite impermanence, it's still very good. And in many cases, I wouldn't be surprised incorporating both types of hand traps into your deck could be a very good thing. Now, let's talk about the set before activation is on the field at resolution, and for the rest of your turn, you can turn all other spell and trap cards in this column negated. That effect, the negation in the specific zone that you set this card, actually comes up often, more often than you think, because in Duel Links the zones are 3, as opposed to OCG and TCG formats. The zones are 5. So the spell and trap card negation in the column, it comes up, but not as often, because there's more zones. So theoretically, that specific instances of negation and spell and trap card negation isn't going to come up, but it does come up sometimes. But in Duel Links, it's going to come up more often, because there's many times where many players will set 3 cards, and you can put this in this column during your turn, or during your turn, and you're going to go ahead and try to negate a specific floodgate or a specific card that you want to get, and plus you get to negate the monster effect of an opponent's monster. Now, and that's very, very powerful. And that's, once again, Effect Veiler can't do that, basically. So, and in many cases, because of the zones or just 3, it's going to come up more often. And that's something you have to keep in mind as well. Because anytime you can negate a spell trap card and a monster effect at the same turn, and you can knock out theoretically a +1 negation with just infinite impermanence in itself. So it has so much versatility, and it's so powerful. I'm very glad that it's not limit 3, because it could be used as limit 3, honestly, because it's that strong. But I'm glad it doesn't, because it gives players the opportunity to not have to worry about that, because getting the card is quite difficult at this time because it's only available in a selection box. So I'm glad that it's not limited 3, because it promotes the ability to motivate players to actually get this type of card without having to worrying about the kind of like the ban list of this type of card, because it is definitely worthy of a limit 3 limitation, because it could do so much. And again, with the the zones only being 3, this card is going to be seeing the spell and the trap card negation more often than most players think. I can count many times where the spell and trap card column negation applies in effect very much, and because again, the zones are only 3, and you can, if you can kind of, you can almost kind of bait your opponent to activate certain cards. You can force your opponent to activate a card in their column, and then it allows you to activate infinite impermanence, knock out their monster effect, and then also, while at the same time, negate the spell and trap card zone negation. So this card has literally no sort of downside whatsoever on 2. So in many cases, this is never going to be a dead card. And almost all the time, it's going to be a live card because of its versatility and being able to just navigate and do so much against so many different types of decks. Even if a deck doesn't really care about effect negation, monster effect negation, there might be a good chance that they heavily want to prevent spell and trap card negation. So in many cases, due to its versatility, it's going to be very competitive against all sorts of types of decks, which I think is going to translate to being a staple for most types of decks as well. And I think that when you have a card like this and being able to do so much, it's going to be a wise choice for people, for players who want to compete at the highest level and also make their deck as powerful as possible in the current format, to be able to try to incorporate some copies of this card. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope I gave you a little bit more insight to infinite impermanence in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. And thanks for watching. Take care, and bye-bye.